What were the sources of happiness during the Great Depression? This is what he found from his research. Doing things together, being in the same boat and feeling closer, being philosophical, family and friends, self-expression, helping others, sport, and for some, freedom from a boring job. So from this we can see that living a balanced, healthy life now will develop our emotional resilience and help future-proof ourselves. Our greatest challenge is that we've become human lights. The rise of consumerism, I shop, therefore I am, and individualism has weakened our ability to live and work together in hard times. Our true challenge today is really spiritual. That is our deep inner beliefs. Who am I? What am I? And how much stuff do we need to be happy? Be aware that men are often hit by these types of changes. The Soviet Union economic collapse demonstrated that men are especially vulnerable. I was living in Russia in the early 90s and I saw this for myself, that men who I thought were much older than me were actually younger, but they'd been drinking so much and their health was so poor. So men see the biggest increase in mental health, alcohol and drug problems during financial breakdowns, especially if they have no job, purpose or meaning in their lives. So we need to prepare so as not to be victims ourselves. Why bother, if this all seems too hard? Well, if you understand and prepare yourself psychologically and you have developed skills that will be in demand in the future, then you will be needed. And life often becomes more meaningful when things go wrong and we need to help each other. And think of natural disasters where people are helping each other. They often find that part of life very exciting and fulfilling. Career strategies. We need to be aware of some trends. Firstly, economic localization will rise as it becomes cheaper to make things locally again, so we won't be as reliant on imports from China. Many products may be made by machines, but they'll be increasingly repaired locally by hand. And there'll be decline of permanent full-time jobs and the growth of the informal economy. Unofficial, under-the-table activities from barter to black market will increase, and I saw this for myself in Russia. There'll be less affluence. Forced entrepreneurship will increase. For example, in New York City in 1928, there were only 200 shoe shiners and most of them were children. But by 1932, in the depths of the Great Depression, there were over 7,000 shoe shiners and most of them were adults. So I'm not saying that you're going to be shining shoes. What I'm saying is it'll be really useful to have some practical skills that will be in demand. Because many white-collar, tourism, mining and construction jobs will be vulnerable. Think through the impacts of high fuel prices and the end of cheap flights, for example. There'll be a job shift from wants to needs. There'll be less discretionary jobs, jobs based on supplying nice-to-have things that aren't really essential. So there'll be less of these types of jobs. And instead, increasingly, there'll be a shift to more emphasis on jobs providing the essentials in life, things that people really need to have. Farmers, paramedics, nurses, carpenters, plumbers, security services, renewable energy, and so on. Agricultural employment will increase. Higher oil prices plus climate change will mean food production problems, which will mean higher food prices. Agricultural employment may increase from the current level of about 3% back to the historical norm, which is more around 15 to 30% of total employment in most societies. So you may want to consider a career in low-put intensive farming for some of you. It's interesting that a UN expert report recently found that agroecology, for example, permaculture type approaches, can be more effective than our current industrial farming system. It just takes more human input. And it was Abraham Lincoln who said that the greatest fine art of the future will be the making of a comfortable living from a small piece of land. There'll be a return of self-sufficiency skills. Over the last 100 years, we've lost the skills to meet many of our needs, whereas once we used to grow and produce many things around the home. As complex global production and distribution systems decline, we'll need to relearn how to do practical things for ourselves and our neighbours. So look for practical short courses and hands-on apprenticeships. And more people are going to need to do hands-on work in the future. Looking at this energy descent pathways, we can see there'll be two stages. In the first stage of energy descent, either brown tech or green tech, there'll be a wide range of jobs, but they'll be based on meeting those essential needs that we talked about. And at some point, it could be 10 or it could be 20 or 30 years from now, there'll be a second collapse as we go to a lower level of energy use. And at this time, there'll be increasingly important to have household and local self-sufficiency skills. Some green tech job growth areas to keep in mind, basically jobs that reduce the use of resources by using them more efficiently, will be in a number of areas. Solar energy, wind, other renewable energies, smart grids, biofuels, biomaterials, efficiency, alternative transport, water provision, natural gas, coal seam methane gas. You can get all of this from the presentation that you can download from my site. Some tips: assess yourself and decide, are you going to seek a passion career or defensive career? If you're really passionate about something, go for it. But it could be a good idea to have some backup options, something which will be a trade to fall back on perhaps. Invest in yourself. Learn practical new skills for hobbies. Things such as growing food, repairing things, herbal medicine. Having a diverse range of skills and options will be a real asset in the future. Some trades will actually be more valuable than some uni degrees. Don't go to uni just because it's expected of you, just because of peer pressure. Before committing to any degree or trade, consider it carefully and interview 3 people from that occupation. A lot of people wander off to university and think, oh, that sounds interesting, but they haven't really looked into what are the employment prospects. Don't fall into this trap. Avoid affluenza, which is the mindless consumerism and unproductive debt. Ignore the advertising propaganda that tries to get you to spend all your time and money on things that you don't really need, because the lower you can keep your living expenses, the more career and learning options you'll have, the more flexible you'll be. Okay, where to from here? Keep learning. There's a number of great websites out that go into a lot of these areas that we've discussed, and you can find links to these and more information, as I said, on my website. This is really the only thing you need to write down and remember from today, transitionwise.org. At the top of the homepage, you can download this PowerPoint. Weigh the evidence and decide for yourself. Remember that most people are in denial. Their attitude is, oh, it couldn't happen to my civilization. But they haven't even studied any of the 6 global threats. But basically, most of society is sleepwalking through life. If you think energy descent is our likely future, get me or someone else for a more in-depth career management workshop based on this scenario. Get involved. Get active in your local community. This will help you prepare with new friends and new information, opportunities and skills. One positive community approach to dealing with these issues is the transition towns, and their website, transitiontowns.org, is one place to begin. Just don't put your head in the sand and forget about it all. If you do, you're more likely to get your butt kicked by life. Some final thoughts: do what you can, but don't worry and stress. Some things are beyond our control. Enjoy life, appreciate what you've got, but don't get too attached to it. Change happens. But remember, major change can be paralyzing or exciting, depending on your mindset, so you might as well enjoy the adventure. If you want to discuss how this impacts your career personally, Neil, your career counsellor, would be more than happy to make himself available. And you can always ask me questions by emailing me from the website if you like. Thank you very much.